Hello, my name is Jessica Akins, and the piece I have chosen to critique of my own work is my wire sculpture with skin. I will be going from an image, as I think you can see him better overall, though he's here. So just gonna jump in. This piece is made from annealed wire, a bit of fluoro wire, with the addition of yarn and cotton fabric to make up its skin. This piece is representational and more stylized to depict an alligator. It is predominantly black from the wire and ivory with its fabric additions. There's a bit of green in there from the fluoro wire, but it's not very noticeable, so we're just gonna ignore it. This piece, as was part of the assignment, uses line in a variety of ways to make up the structural component as well as create some of the visual design. I think I was fairly successful in that regard. There's also a good repetition of shapes, such as those rectangles on the belly and the back through the positioning of some of the fabric pieces overlapping the head and other areas. I would say the first thing I see when looking at this piece, or that my eyes are drawn to, is its eyes and the pattern running down its back, that sort of checkerboard. As I think these areas come with the greatest use of contrast and positive and negative space, though I realize it's fairly balanced. The use of spiral wire in areas like the toes and eyes, along with the posing chosen for the piece, feels quite fun and less intimidating than maybe a more realistic version of such a depiction would be. I think the scale also lends to that. Once again, this piece leans more towards the realistic or stylized side of representation of a real animal, which makes this piece, I think, widely accessible to any viewer to recognize or connect with in a general sense. Depending on the viewer's preference for the animal, that may change how they take the piece overall, but generally I think it's something most people would be able to look at and identify at the very least. I think the simplified shapes, in addition of some of the smaller details such as the silly spirals and rounded teeth, makes the piece feel more fun, and I think was made for the pure exploration and love of the animal. And as the artist, exploration of shape and form in this piece was important. Also, to approach its dangerous reality with a more lighthearted representation, I think the addition of the ivory fabric helps with that as well, to bring a lightness to the creature, or even acknowledge the exclusivity of that aforementioned light side of a normally dangerous animal. This piece's value comes from what I learned from its creation, but as a viewer I don't really know what its value would be outside of that, other than perhaps the obvious work that went into it. I think overall this piece was successful in its representation and maybe for its engagement, if not for a few flaws. This piece looks rather messy and potentially incomplete in some ways, and I think that subtracts from some of the success of this piece. I will say I did like the piece better before I added the skin to it, so I think that has decreased its value to me personally. I will give myself props for finding fun ways to manipulate the wire to create form and shape, especially in his belly, arms, and legs. Those areas more specifically, I think it did a good job making both structurally and visually representative of what I wanted, though it's kind of covered by that janky skin, which doesn't help my appreciation for it. But overall I think it holds up as an adequate sculpture and a great introduction to the use of wire in this style, but perhaps is lacking in some areas such as content and finality. But yeah.